This is the Embassy File. I'm Hector H. Lopez. Today, at a time when artificial intelligence is reshaping economies, education, and even governance, Latin America faces an unparalleled opportunity to redefine sovereignty, not just in political terms, but in how it educates its future generations, how it positions itself in global markets, and how it negotiates its role in the balance of power. This episode will serve as a prelude to a speech I'll be delivering at the Council of International Schools later this week, where I will challenge the traditional education model and present a vision for lifelong learning that strengthens Latin American nations and their influence on the world stage. In today's briefing, we will explore how AI is dismantling old education models and offering Latin America a competitive edge. Why sovereignty today is not just about borders, but about intellectual independence, and how nations can reclaim control over education, economy, and diplomacy through a new global model. So let's begin. Let's face it, the global education model is broken. It's almost cliche to say it, but it is time for a reset. And it's not only time for a reset in one country or another, it's time for a reset worldwide. We are witnessing the collapse of an education model that no longer serves the modern world. The cost of higher education in the US are now reaching over $120,000 per year, an obscene number compared to tuition in Italy or even in Mexico, which averages at about $18,000 a year for private institutions. This is no longer an issue of affordability. It's an issue of access and national security. Artificial intelligence is exposing a fundamental flaw. Traditional universities are not keeping up. Already, AI is revolutionizing learning. From AI-powered tutors that tailor learning to each child's pace, to fully automated case studies that guide professionals through real-world challenges, we're seeing the rise of personalized, scalable education. But here is the key insight. Whoever controls education controls the future workforce and, by extension, economic power. And right now, Latin America has a chance to seize its own future by designing an educational model that is high rigor, low cost, and fully aligned with national development goals. This is the very model that I will be discussing with the Council of International Schools, a lifelong learning pathway that starts in high school, continues through higher education, and extends into one's professional life. It is a system where knowledge is accessible to all, driven by social impact, by bringing communities together and mentorship rather than outdated degrees. The question is not whether education will change. The question is, who will lead that change? Sovereignty today is not just about protecting borders. It's about protecting economic, digital, and intellectual autonomy. Mexico's proposed constitutional reforms just recently to limit foreign influence over key industries are an example of how Latin America is beginning to set its own terms. This is about more than nationalism. It's about ensuring that the region does not remain a pawn in the US-China geopolitical competition. Similarly, Panama is rejecting US narratives about the alleged renegotiation of the Panama Canal. The Panamanian president has outright called U.S. statements as patently false, reinforcing the very importance of narrative control in global diplomacy. If you let another country define your reality, you have already lost that battle before it even began. The same principle applies to Ukraine, Russia, and the shifting U.S. alliances. With Trump's brand new international agenda that is beginning to reveal with rhetoric that there will be a brand new approach to Russia, Latin America must ask, how will this affect regional diplomacy? Will Washington's focus shift away from Latin America? creating a vacuum for new alliances. These are the moments when nations must be proactive and not reactive. We'll be right back. We're introducing the Minute Intelligence Brief, where we break down the most important diplomatic developments this week. Trump recently praised Claudia Sheinbaum. In a surprising turn of events, Trump recently complimented Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum, signaling a potential recalibration. What does this mean exactly? It suggests that Trump perhaps sees Mexico as a crucial player in his geopolitical strategy, not as an adversary, but as a nation whose cooperation he will need in trade and security. Latin America must be prepared to use this leverage. The Panama Canal. It has escalated in terms of the dispute. As I mentioned earlier, Panama's president rejected U.S. claims about ongoing negotiations regarding the canal, making it clear that sovereignty is non-negotiable. Expect diplomatic maneuvering in the coming weeks, and also expect China to begin to reinforce, or at least attempt to reinforce, its economic ties to Panama as a way to counterbalance U.S. pressure. The question is, will Panama bite? Mexico's constitutional changes, a game changer perhaps? Mexico is exploring reforms that would limit foreign intervention in key sectors, including technology, energy, and finance. These are constitutional reforms sending a message. It's about long-term economic sovereignty, but it's also setting a precedent for the region. And it's sending a message to the United States, particularly because the U.S. recently labeled cartels as terrorist organizations. The challenge? Ensuring that these protections do not stifle the relationship between the United States and Mexico, innovation, and foreign investment. Let's move on to perhaps the most talked about, Ukraine, Russia, and the United States. Is this a shift in power? With reports of Trump's potential new stance on Russia, Europe is watching very closely, and Latin America should be watching too. If Washington reduces its focus on Ukraine, it may mean less diplomatic energy for Latin America. This presents an opening for countries to redefine their role in the global order, strengthening ties with emerging power blocs. So, what we have discussed today is more than a set of policy shifts. It's a blueprint for how Latin America and other nations can assert themselves in a rapidly changing world. Education, economic sovereignty, and diplomatic strategy are no longer separate issues. They are interconnected pillars of a nation's future power. We are not passive observers of history. We are active participants in shaping it. So I leave you with this question. Will Latin America seize this moment to define its future, or will it allow others to define it? I want to thank you for joining me. I also want to thank you for being a part of this evolving family. I see very many of you sharing the stories and following us on TikTok and following us in different places. We want to give you our thanks. We're excited about the new podcast. We want to continue to create great content for all of you. And we're also now working in collaboration with major news media throughout the Americas. So we thank you from the bottom of our hearts for allowing us to be a part of your day. We'll see you next time.